Edgbaston is often celebrated for its greenery, cricket ground, or the university. But there's a lesser-known side that most visitors and even locals rarely think about. Its quietly revolutionary, scientific, and industrial heritage. Beneath the leafy streets and elegant homes, this area was a hub for experimentation that helped shape modern Birmingham. Long before Edgbaston became synonymous with affluence and academia, it was home to small workshops and private laboratories. Inventors and engineers conducted experiments in electricity, magnetism, and early mechanics, laying the groundwork for technologies that would later spread across the city. Some of these early pioneers were even funded by local families who lived in the grand houses nearby, merging domestic life with scientific curiosity in a way that seems almost invisible today. The University of Birmingham inherited much of this pioneering work, particularly in physics and electrical engineering. But it wasn't just academic. The knowledge generated here quietly powered industries across the city, from precision instruments to early machinery. Instruments designed and refined in Edgbaston labs found their way into factories and workshops, influencing products that reached far beyond the region. What's particularly fascinating is Edgbaston's link to early aviation experimentation. Before aviation became widely commercial, inventors tested gliders and engines in open fields that are now part of the residential landscape. These experiments were small-scale, often private, but they contributed to the foundation of flight engineering in Britain. Even the waterways that thread through the area played a subtle role. Canals and streams weren't just for transportation. They powered small workshops, provided steady water for chemical experiments, and enabled mechanical testing. These quiet currents carried innovation in ways that are now completely hidden beneath the suburb's familiar calm. So next time you think of Edgbaston, imagine it not just as a picturesque and prestigious suburb, but as a place where curiosity and experimentation quietly thrived. From early electrical experiments to aviation trials and precision engineering, Edgbaston's hidden scientific past helped shape the city in ways that remain invisible, yet profoundly influential. One of the most intriguing aspects of Edgbaston's hidden history is the interplay between science and art. While the suburb is primarily celebrated for its academics and greenery, many of the same families and inventors who supported laboratories were also patrons of art, architecture, and design. This led to a fascinating overlap: engineering principles influencing building design, and experimental ideas appearing in artistic creations. Some villas were designed with unusual geometries, inspired by studies in structural mechanics, and interiors sometimes featured early electrical lighting experiments, long before electricity was common in most homes. Another overlooked story is the role of early public health and medical innovation in Edgbaston. The University of Birmingham's medical school grew alongside scientific experimentation, and some of the first controlled studies of sanitation, water quality, and public health were conducted right here. Private philanthropists in Edgbaston often funded these initiatives, supporting the development of modern hospital equipment and techniques. The impact of these early projects spread throughout the city, improving everyday life in ways that were never flashy but profoundly important. Edgbaston also had a surprising role in communications technology. Early experiments with telegraphy, radio waves, and even sound recording found support in local workshops. Inventors living here often tested electrical circuits and signal transmission in their own basements or outbuildings. While the experiments were small-scale, they contributed to the understanding of how information could travel faster than ever before, a precursor to the city's later contributions to industrial electronics. Then there's the story of scientific societies and informal clubs. Edgbaston was home to gatherings of curious minds who met to share discoveries, debate theories, and demonstrate experiments. Unlike formal university lectures, these meetings were intimate, often held in private homes or small rented halls. They were crucibles of innovation, where ideas could cross-pollinate between physics, chemistry, engineering, and even biology. Some of the technologies we take for granted today were first discussed in these informal settings. The suburb's natural environment played a subtle but essential role in experimentation as well. Gardens, small wooded areas, and ponds provided sites for early botanical studies ecological observations, and experiments with plant growth and soil chemistry. Some of these studies influenced industrial agriculture and horticulture practices in Birmingham and beyond. In other words, Edgbaston was not just a laboratory of machines and electricity, it was also a living laboratory, where natural sciences quietly flourished alongside mechanical and electrical engineering. There's also a story about early transportation experiments. While Edgbaston itself never became a major industrial transport hub, inventors tested small-scale engines, pneumatic systems, and even rudimentary vehicle prototypes here. These experiments weren't widely publicized at the time, but they contributed to Birmingham's later prominence in automotive and mechanical engineering. Small private trials in Edgbaston helped refine engine design and mechanical efficiency, influencing local industry in ways few realize. A fascinating and often overlooked figure in this history is the individual polymath inventor, residents who were simultaneously chemists, engineers, and sometimes artists. Their private notebooks, now mostly archived in the University of Birmingham, reveal experiments ranging from electricity to metallurgy to early optical devices. These personal projects were crucial stepping stones that later blossomed into industrial applications, often without public recognition. Finally, Edgbaston's legacy of quiet innovation is reflected in its modern institutions. The University of Birmingham, research labs, and cultural centers all build upon this history. But the true magic lies in the invisible threads, the experiments, the private workshops, the small-scale trials, the interdisciplinary clubs that transformed a seemingly serene suburb into a hidden engine of innovation. These hidden histories remind us that innovation often thrives in places we least expect, quietly shaping the future while the world sees only gardens, elegant homes, and familiar institutions. Another fascinating dimension of Edgbaston's history is its role in early materials experimentation. Beyond metals, local inventors tested early plastics, rubbers, and composites in small workshops. These weren't large-scale factories, they were private, almost secretive labs. But the knowledge gained here helped shape Birmingham's future in precision manufacturing. Some of the earliest prototypes of durable tools, electrical insulation materials, and mechanical components came from these small-scale experiments. Edgbaston was also quietly influential in early environmental science. Residents and university researchers conducted studies on soil composition, water quality, and air purity, long before these topics became mainstream concerns. Canals, streams, and even small ponds served as testing grounds for understanding chemical reactions and filtration methods, which later informed industrial processes and public health initiatives. Interestingly, Edgbaston played a subtle role in scientific networking and mentorship. Many young inventors, students, and apprentices were able to connect with experienced engineers and scientists living in the suburb. These informal mentorships, often taking place in private homes, workshops, or gardens, helped cultivate talent that would later spread across the city's industries. The influence of these networks is invisible in the urban landscape, but its impact is woven throughout Birmingham's industrial and academic development. Finally, Edgbaston's legacy reminds us that innovation doesn't always happen in obvious places. While factories, labs, and lecture halls grab headlines, it was in quiet homes, intimate clubs, and small private workshops that many transformative ideas first took shape. Today, the suburb looks serene and refined, but the hidden currents of experimentation, mentorship, and ingenuity remain part of its DNA. Every precision tool, electrical device, and mechanical invention connected to Birmingham owes something, however small, to this subtle, overlooked hub of creativity. One area that rarely gets attention is Edgbaston's contribution to early experimental photography and optics. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, some local inventors were testing lenses, light-sensitive chemicals, and early imaging devices in private workshops. These experiments were often aimed at improving scientific measurement tools, but they also influenced early photography and optical engineering in Birmingham. Some of the principles developed here even fed into medical imaging and precision instruments later on. Edgbaston also fostered a culture of cross-disciplinary innovation. Inventors didn't limit themselves to one field. They would experiment with electricity one day, mechanical devices the next, and materials chemistry in between. This approach encouraged creative problem solving, and many of the breakthroughs that emerged were only possible because knowledge was allowed to flow freely across different scientific domains. Finally, Edgbaston's story is a reminder of the hidden social networks that sustain innovation. The local salons, informal clubs, and private gatherings where experiments were shared quietly built communities of knowledge. Ideas circulated, partnerships formed, and young engineers and scientists were mentored in ways that formal institutions often couldn't provide.